you guys recently had a really big event at Rickwood Field, which I was a part of. It was a fun event to come to and be a part of. Tell us a little bit about what happened last week.
Yeah, so that was obviously a huge day for our organization. For 30 years, we were known as the American Baseball Foundation, and we are now called the SmartPlay. And the reason for that transition was the American Baseball Foundation. When it first began, it was mostly baseball centric, but it barely scratches the surface of what all we do today and the value provide to the youth in our communities. Like it's so much more than baseball, and that's what the assumption had become and stayed. And so the message wasn't clear because it's more than baseball for us. We're providing these kids with true academic help while keeping that sports component. So the combination of the two is we have our tagline of covering all the bases. So that's excellence in each area for us, which is sports, academics, and building character.
Okay, and y'all had a press conference.
That's right.
And then you had a VIP reception, and then you had your celebrity softball game.
Yeah, that's right. So we want to do this in a big way, right? So kind of like for 30 years, we were really remotely under the radar.
Yeah.
Most of our work was just in building the program. So like if people knew who we are, they knew the value we provided. But this new chapter for us, we want to come into the community in a big way. People know who we are, what we do, and that was a fun way to kick it off. So
as a baseball guy and a sports guy, I mean it's always cool to see how y'all have really done a great job of like bringing in big names, and we're going to talk about the leadoff dinner a little bit later. But you had Goose, Gossage for that. But you had some Birmingham celebrities that showed up for the softball game. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it really turned into like a celebrity softball game of Birmingham based. Like most had Birmingham or Alabama ties, and so you had Rick Burgess, former the Rick and Bubba Show, now the Rick Burgess Show. You had Michael Mays, Willie Mays' son. It's always fun just to, once he starts talking, you just listen.
Yeah.
He's got stories for days, of course. And then you had Chris Hammond, who's Birmingham based, 12 years in the majors, and you just Mark Everett, who has Olympic medal. You had all types of people out there, so it was just really cool to gather all those type of people in one space, and it was a lot of fun.
Are these relationships that that are kind of built in already, or are you just kind of reaching out to different people? These people that are already connected with the organization?
Some yes and some no. So, for example, like Michael Mays, he, with Fairfield ties, he's got some ties to Rickwood, in which we're partners with Rickwood. So there's kind of some beginning of a relationship there, and he was at our dinner back in February. So there's a beginning relationship there, and most of these we're starting some relationships as we look to build in the future and maybe do it again.
Yeah. I always run into Papa Jack.
It's like Papa
Jack is at every event, man.
Yeah, Papa Jack, he's one of course, very active in the Birmingham community, and he loves to let people wear his '04 Red Sox World Series ring, and he's a fun guy in the community.
Yeah, he was an assistant on that '04 team. Was he like the hitting coach?
Correct.
Or
he was a hitting coach,
okay.
So he talks about his time being a hitting coach for Big Papi and his time
Millar
there.
and those guys.
Oh,
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I always enjoy talking to him, and he actually signed my son's shirt. Very gracious man. But it's always good to run into Papa Jack.
Oh yeah.
Tell us more about the organization itself. Exactly what y'all do. I know you mentioned that you guys have kind of flown under the radar for 30 years, but you've really done some good work where you're combining. And I love the concept where you're combining sports and academics from a teaching standpoint.
That's right. And so the sports-based academics portion, we have our own curriculum. It was written by UAB, so we partnered with them, probably over a decade ago when we got it written. So it's ours, and it's all sports-based. So these are, when they read, they probably read about Willie Mays, Jackie Robinson. So these are books that they will enjoy reading, because I think that's one thing we want to focus on is. We want to create enjoyment with reading, and that involves books that they would choose themselves, right? Not, telling them that they have to read this book, and that's kind of we get, a bad relationship with reading at that point. So, and a lot of our work comes in the summer. So we want to keep that fun. It's supposed to be fun. And a lot of the kids we get, they struggle during the school year. So our approach is we need to make it not like that school environment. All right? We want to make it different. We want to make it fun, engaging. And how we do that is it's very different, like I said. So we have kids that'll rotate from an academic station. So they're inside, reading for 45 minutes, and they go outside and they'll play baseball for 45 minutes. So they're never inside for more than 45 minutes at a time.
Is some of the instruction tied into academics, or are those two things separate? I mean, are you learning as you're going through a drill as well, or are those? Is the academic part separate from the sports part?
Yeah, it's separate. So they'll be inside, and so that'll be the academic focus session. But then they go outside and learn some of the different sports. So we do more than just baseball. We'll also put in some soccer, some volleyball, because we have a lot of girls in our camp too. And that's the thing. It's like, when they go in the classroom, they know they're only in there for 45 minutes. You get so much more out of them when they know they can go outside and play.
Yeah.
So
I think that's such a challenge for really everybody now. It's not just we talk about kids these days and all that kind of stuff. Well, I mean, it's adults these days too. I mean, like adults are not getting out. Adults are not. We're so stuck on our phones. We're just our faces are in our phones. We're not getting outside, and it's just so important for us to be able to get outside, get some sun, be out in nature, be out in God's creation.
That's right.
And so I think it's great what y'all are doing, where y'all are, giving them those breaks where they can go outside.
That's right. And you can get even deeper with like the science of why activity before learning is beneficial, right? When you get the muscle and the blood flowing, it goes to the brain and promotes more, memory. And it's just, there's so many benefits that the kids don't even realize, but they reap the benefits of. And I mean, we're not just saying this, we actually see it when we pre and post test these kids. So we see where they're at academically when they come in, and then see what they gained when the camp's over with. So we see the results on paper.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tried and true method that y'all are working through. So tell us about the rebranding campaign. Why did y'all feel like it was time to kind of do a refresh on the way you presented yourselves?
Right. So, I mean, as a nonprofit, in order to grow, the community's got to have a clear understanding of who you are, what you do. So the benefit of why we're had been here for 30 years, which is, great for a nonprofit, right? Is we have a lot of loyalty. We have many partners and donors who've been with us over a decade, some more than 2 decades, which is amazing. That's why we're still here and still being able to do the great work. But when you want to grow, we got to expand outside of those. We want to add to that loyal donorship base and partnership base. And so that comes with having a clear message and story. So that's why we think it was necessary, because we saw a roadblock, right? Is you would say American Baseball Foundation, and you can create a pretty easy assumption, whether it's accurate or not. You create one, and most of the time it was just, they do some baseball stuff, and that is just a very small piece of what we do. There's so much more value to it.
Is it a national effort now, or is it mostly centered on Central and throughout the state of Alabama?
So we have national capabilities, while our recent efforts have been focused in Central Alabama.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is, since the curriculum is our own, we've had partners throughout and outside of Birmingham and outside the state, where we can go, we train, the staff at their summer program and provide the curriculum. So there's those capabilities, but we really want to increase our community awareness here in Central Alabama.
Honestly, I don't even know how I initially got connected with the organization, but met Dave. He was kind of the linchpin of getting everything started. I mean, it was just amazing what he did, and sadly, he passed away a couple of years ago. And from your standpoint, what was his contribution? What was his legacy to the organization?
Yeah, so if you knew him, you knew he poured everything into it. And like you said, he passed away, I guess it was July of 20 or June of 23. And he was in his 70s, but he was going to work till the end of days regardless. That was just who he was. I mean, like I was saying, he poured his heart into the community around us and just the program itself, because he wanted that to be, he wanted the kids to learn something. He wanted them to gain tenacity, but also
how to, be a better human, be a better student. So that's where he poured his heart into, and so now it's building on top of that and increasing our growth and impact like he always worked for.
What do you think led him to founding the organization?
So yeah, it's funny because like before, he's a man who's been all over the world. He's bilingual. He lived in Spain for a long time. He was part of a group that got baseball in the Olympics before starting the organization. So once that career ended for him, he came to Birmingham with Dr. Andrews, and when the organization first began, it was baseball centric. So maybe the name fit then. It was a lot of promoting the baseball inside of Birmingham and the communities where it wasn't very popular in, where they didn't have a lot of resources. And then years later, he realized like these students need more than just learn how to play. These kids need the academic help too, and they need to learn how to read in order to get to the next level. If that's what they want to do. So that once he saw that need, he put some work into it.
How did you initially get connected to the organization?
So it's funny, and if you knew Dave, this would make sense. But so like I said, it was very under the radar organization, and I didn't know of it. And I was my career before here was not something I was enjoying, so I was looking for other opportunities. And I see again, this is him. It was a 1-paragraph job description. I think it was on LinkedIn, and it was American Baseball Foundation, and at first it was just baseball. I was like, a job, baseball, that's me.
Yeah.
That's where I want to go. And so it led to me emailing him. But so my career before was I was supply chain manager at a hospital. So for me, it was like, that was a good career out of college. I'm managing a team of people, but that wasn't where my heart was.
Yeah.
But all that to say is that doesn't really build your resume for a nonprofit in baseball or the academic world or any of that. So I really had to convince him to give me a call. Because like I said, you just look at that on paper and like, this guy's not,
But you had a baseball background.
I did have a baseball background, so that I think that led him to calling me.
Did you play at Hewitt-Trussville?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. I grew up there, and so I think that led him to call me. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They've really stepped into their program.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I convinced him to give me a call, and that led to a further interview with their board of directors, and became on as a program director. So,
yeah. Did you ever think that? I mean, at that point, did you ever think like, I'm going to be the executive director of this at some point, or was it?
At first, no. It wasn't until later on, after I'd already joined as the program director and having conversations with our board of directors and other people, that was why the position was created, is to eventually take over. And that wasn't something that was even provided to me as knowledge. But so once I found that out, because like I said, he was in his 70s even at the time of hiring me. So knowing that, became a huge honor for me that I was chosen to eventually take that position.
Y'all have always had great guests at the Leadoff dinners, and that's a fun event every year. I hate that I missed it this past year, especially with Goose Gossage coming to speak, and heard that was very interesting, by the way.
Right.
But you've had Mitch Moreland, Brian Jordan, Goose Gossage. I know you've had more, but how do you get connected to some of those guys? Do you just kind of reach out and ask them if they're willing to come speak? And
there's different approaches to it, but there's the MLB Players Alumni Association, so they have, I don't think they're technically called agents, but representatives that connect us to players, and so that's a route we can go to get connected to players. And so there's all types of former players that you can get connected with.
Yeah. Can you give us a sneak peek about who you're looking at for 2026?
We're early stages, and it's funny. So we got that route, but also have some personal connections that are making it professionally. So that may be a route I go as well.
Do you have plans to mix it up a little bit? I know James Spann is there every year, so that's a huge thing,
Yeah,
But,
if we're doing the dinner, James Spann's going to be there. He's, we have some people that come to see James Spann. He's the MC of our event.
Yeah, that's the first time I ever met him.
Amazing job.
Yeah,
amazing job.
Well, are you going to step over and maybe have a basketball guest or a football guest, or are you just going to stay in the baseball lane?
I don't know, because like I said before, most of our guests that come to that dinner have been coming for years. Mm-hmm. So there are a few guests that have come since the very first one, and last year was our 24th.
Yeah.
So a lot do look forward to the baseball guests. So we, obviously with our past, we're very connected in the baseball world.
Right.
But as we look to the future, most of our fundraising events have just really been that dinner.
Yeah.
So as we look to expand and grow, we're going to look at different types of events, like a celebrity softball game.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to stun people that are expecting a baseball guy. I mean, I'm thinking about Joe DeLeonard right now. I mean, like Joe, there's no telling what may happen if a basketball guy, were to step up there.
Yeah.
Another cool thing about the events, has it always been at the club, or have y'all had other events elsewhere?
I believe most years have been at the
club.
Yeah.
What's cool about the event is one of the cool things. There's a lot of cool things about it, but the silent auction table.
Yeah.
I actually got. I don't know why. Sometimes I like obscure things, but last year I got a Vince Coleman signed St. Louis Cardinals powder blue jersey.
Oh, that's the good one.
Loved it. But there was a Jim Rice bat. I know Jack Baker has been somebody that has got some connections to Rice, but again, going back to how do you cobble all that together? I mean, because y'all have got some really awesome silent auction items.
Yeah. Jim Rice, he was a former speaker years ago as well, so that I think that's some kind of rollover from that event. But so the silent auction is big thanks to Gerald Watkins with Friends of Rickwood.
Yeah.
He's put on silent auctions for the longest and has done ours for years. And so really him and Ben Powell's another guy who's on the Friends of Rickwood board. And those two lead that on, and I give it to them. They do an amazing job, and it's amazing what kind of items they bring.
You're a baseball guy, and if you had to have one guy come speak, I mean, then you can, and we're wide open to anybody. Wide open to anybody. Wade Boggs, I don't know, Sandberg, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, like if one guy that's still alive that you could have come speak at your organization, who would it be?
God, that's a great question. Because I think former, but also think current.
Who was your favorite player growing up?
I had a couple. I'm a Braves fan. Was a Braves fan growing up. I think Chipper Jones would probably have some good stories, but also some of those other '90s Braves, like I think Maddox would be good. We've had Glavine in the past. We've had Dale Murphy.
Yeah, okay.
So Braves and Yankees are popular around here, so we've had a lot of those type players.
See, I came in kind of late to the organization a little bit, I feel like. I mean, y'all have had a whole history.
We've had some big names. Our first one was Hank Aaron.
Wow.
We've had Tommy Lasorda. We've had John Smoltz. We've had some big names.
Yeah.
So we've started off hot there with some big names for sure. But I don't know, because when you think of who you want to come to that event, you want some good stories to tell, right? And here I think Maddox would be a good one, just because I've heard him talk before. And he's always got some good stories of him and his days of pitching and how they used to call pitches, and it's just good. But my favorite player growing up was honestly Andrew Jones.
Okay.
But that was really my first professional game I went to.
Yeah.
I loved baseball already. I think I was less than 10 years old, but he hit a walk-off home run against the Orioles when Sammy Sosa, with his end of his days, was there at the Orioles, and I just remember that moment was like, I love baseball, because you're at a game and a walk-off home run.
Oh, absolutely.
Unreal.
But you're more of a '90s guy, right? I mean, you kind of grew up in the '90s.
Yeah.
And I'm more of an '80s guy.
Yeah, '90s, early 2000s, and so that's kind of when my love for baseball developed. So and it's funny is, back then it was the early 2000s was a different era of baseball, right? With your Sammy Sosas and your Mark McGuire's. So that was the juice ball era.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was able to meet my childhood hero, Darryl Strawberry. He was my favorite player growing up. We had a men's conference here in Jasper, I guess 3 years ago, and he spoke at the event, and I was able to go to lunch with him at Full Moon Barbecue here in town, and
Nice.
just kind of pick his brain about the Mets and just what an incredible experience. But that'd be a good one to get to come. Strawberry would be great.
Kidding. Yeah, he'd be really good. I mean, we've had all types of guests before, and James Finn also does a good job of getting those stories out of them. So I think that's the value in having a good MC, of getting the stories, because I mean, not all players are great speakers, but you ask them the right questions, you get them to tell some good stories.
And it's more of with Gossage this past year. Did he speak, or did James just interview him? I mean, like,
well, that's the funny part of Goose is James started off asking questions, but Goose he really ran with those questions. So there was a couple times he'd tee up a question, but Goose would end up somewhere else.
Right. Yeah.
That was Goose Gossage.
Yeah.
He brought some entertainment, that's for sure. Well, I'll tell you, the fire he had on the mound when he pitched, it hasn't left him.
Yeah, sure. So how do people connect with your organization?
Yeah, I mean, so really that's where we're at now. We really want to connect with our community, and people just at first just kind of watch what we're doing, because we've got some big plans for the future. And so right now it's just follow us on our social medias and where we're going to become active, and so start sharing our story. We have a whole new website that's been completely revamped.
Tell us the link on that.
Yeah, the SmartPlay.org is the new website, and you'll be able to link to our socials from there. But yeah, I mean, at first we're good with just watching us, right?
Yeah.
Because like I was saying, one thing we announced at our press conferences, we're beginning a 5-year plan, a strategic plan to build our own facility. Because for 30 years, we've made it this far off the generosity of others, of using people's facilities to run our programs, to have offices in, and it's amazing what we've done with that approach. But when we look for growth, a facility of our own, there's no telling what we can do.
Yeah, well, I think they've got the right man in a leadership position, and I can already see the growth just over the last few months with you, and I wish you the very best, and if we can help you in any way, please let us know. And I'm glad you came to Jasper, man.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I appreciate it. And yeah, like I said, this right here is a good start for us. We're just trying to spread the word and let everyone see what we're doing and the impact we're making.
Sounds good, man. Thanks so much, Casey.
Appreciate you.
Yep.
Yes, sir.